I like trains, models of trains, and model train accessories that are exploding outhouses. I got to experience all this and more at the Train Collectors Association 2024 National Convention, which took place in the Lancaster County Convention Center in the criminally underrated city of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Stay tuned for more videos on this wonderful city. But back to the convention. It can happen basically anywhere across the country, so it's quite rare for a convention to happen this close to my home in New Jersey, and even rarer for it to happen in a city served by fast, frequent, electric intercity rail. So I decided, what better time to go to the convention and get there on the train. Unfortunately, while one half of my train trip would be smooth like pudding, I wouldn't be so lucky on the other leg. So without further ado, let me show you how I took, or tried to take, transit to a model train convention. My June 20th would start at 4 in the morning at the roadside 24-hour Clinton Station Diner, famous for having the former Blue Comet observation car Bila as part of the restaurant. After an unhealthy breakfast, I drove down Highway 22 to Somerville train station. And with that, my car would no longer be required, or so I thought, and would stay parked here for the next few days. And yes, for those wondering, you can park in this garage over multiple days, though not indefinitely, as evidenced by this impounded SUV gathering dust. I then made my way toward the station platform, where we began one of the quirks of this trip. I took the elevator to climb 10 feet onto the platform. Normally, I wanted to climb the Eiffel Tower like no one's business, but today I am some special cargo requiring special care. But hold on, here's the 5:51 to Newark. Let me get on the train first, and then I'll explain more. Normally I just have my backpack, but today I'm also bringing my duffel bag. So I'll be relying on the elevators a lot more than I usually do, so hopefully they're all in service. Especially because inside I have some O-gauge model trains, because I'm going to a model train convention. Don't want to open my duffel bag, but pack some of the cars loose in here. How wise this is, that's debatable. I guess we'll see. So, since I have my model trains with me, I'll be keeping account of elevators in service and out of service. So far we've had one elevator in service. My train pulled into Newark on time, but then... Alright, so the elevator's out of service, so I guess I'm gonna have to go down the stairs. So after that, I parked myself in the station waiting room, where I watched the Poser train board make token clicking sounds. By the way, fair warning for those who travel through Newark Penn. Don't sit on the waiting room benches if you don't have a ticket. The station police were vigorously enforcing the policy when I was there. Soon enough, my train clicked its way onto the board, the 7:34 a.m. Keystone service terminating at Lancaster. Yes, at Lancaster. For those who don't know, Amtrak is currently doing track work on this line, but fortunately for me, this wouldn't impact my journey. I decided at that point to head up to the platform, which meant it was time for elevator number 3.
To Lancaster. 41.
The train was quite crowded, as I would learn, mostly from passengers traveling to destinations between New York and Philadelphia. So I made my way straight to the back of the train, to the oldest car in Amtrak's fleet, the Metroliner cab car. Being at the back of the train, there was noticeably fewer people, and more open seats, which meant I could get a seat on the right-hand side of the train, the importance of which would become clear later. We departed on time, and soon we were cruising at full speed down the northeast corridor, but not for long. Just 20 minutes later, we were slowing down and crossing over to the local track to stop at Metro Park, where, in a good piece of railroad dispatching work, a New Jersey Transit train was brought to a halt and we were given priority. This train's station stop pattern was interesting. At first, we were making all the local Amtrak stops in New Jersey. After Metro Park, we would stop at New Brunswick, and then Princeton Junction. So you would assume our next station stop would be Trenton, given even the express long-distance train stop at Trenton. But you will be wrong.
Our next station stop, Philadelphia 30th Street.
As we speed ran down the northeast corridor toward Philly, I got into a great conversation with the two conductors at the back of the train. One was a 30-year Amtrak veteran, who gave me some juicy insider news. Amtrak, due to work going on in the East River tunnels, is considering rerouting one of the Silver Service trains to Chicago, basically combining it with the Capital Limited. Something to keep an eye on. The other conductor, the one who you heard making the announcements, was a new hire who had previously worked at New Jersey Transit. But the really interesting part was that she was actually from France. So I asked her, in French, what region of France she was from. Eh oui, je parle français. On peut. Merci, maman. We arrived in Philly pretty much on time. And this is where the Metroliner cab car that I'm sitting in comes into play. Since the train has to backtrack slightly to get onto the line to Lancaster, the engineer will simply switch from the locomotive to the cab car so the engine doesn't have to run around the train. While we wait, I just want to say that while this video isn't sponsored by saltine crackers, they are my all-time favorite travel snack, especially when Keystone service trains don't have a cafe car. But anyway, just 10 minutes later, the back of the train has become the front of the train, and we're departing Philadelphia for a ride through American railroad history. The story of this line starts in late 1820s Pennsylvania, with the state's politicians, aristocrats, and merchants pulling out their hair in panic. The rival state of New York had just completed the Erie Canal, giving it a huge advantage in transporting people and goods from the East Coast to the ever-expanding American West. To stay competitive, the Pennsylvania state legislature did a Michael Eisner and decided to fund the construction of their own canal to connect Philadelphia and Pittsburgh on the Ohio River. But there was a problem. It soon became clear that building a canal on the first leg between Philadelphia and the Susquehanna River wasn't feasible for various reasons. Instead, to bridge the gap, they decided to invest in some newfangled technology, and thus was born the state-owned Philadelphia and Columbia Railroad. This section of the line between Philadelphia and Paoli that we are currently traveling on was one of the first railroad lines to be constructed in the United States, opened in 1832. For the first years of operation, it actually operated as a bit of a public turnpike, where people would pay to run their horses and carts down the railway tracks. But it soon became clear that it would be much more efficient to run scheduled trains pulled by steam locomotives. In fact, the railroad was so efficient that it soon overtook the canal as the primary form of transportation. By 1852, there was a continuous railroad line across the state of Pennsylvania, spearheaded by a new hotshot railroad company, appropriately named the Pennsylvania Railroad. The state of Pennsylvania would then make an extremely short-sighted decision. The state could have maintained ownership of the Philadelphia and Columbia Railroad and leased it to the Pennsylvania Railroad. This would have given the state regulatory power over its most important transportation corridor, and provided a steady revenue stream. Instead, Pennsylvania tried to get all the golden eggs at once, and sold the railroad outright. A mistake certain governments continue to make today. Looking at you, Cincinnati. But to the Pennsylvania Railroad's credit, they would invest heavily in the former Philadelphia and Columbia. The section between Philly and Lancaster was expanded to 4 tracks, becoming the railroad's main line between the East Coast and the Midwest. In 1915, the line between Philadelphia and Paoli was the first section of the Pennsylvania Railroad to have electric trains powered by alternating current overhead wires. The Pennsy would go on to electrify many of their East Coast main lines using this technology. The electrification on this line would be extended all the way past Lancaster to Harrisburg as part of the New Deal in the late 1930s. The wires still power trains on this line today, not just Amtrak, but also local SEPTA trains on the Paoli-Thorndale line. Speaking of which, our train is now arriving at the next stop, Paoli, which was completely rebuilt just prior to the pandemic, with the original low platforms being replaced with an accessible high-level platform. After Paoli, the landscape around us begins to change, from pre-World War II suburbs built around the railroad to post-World War II exurbs primarily built around the car. Many stations on this part of the line, like Exton, primarily exist as park and rides, with little connectivity to the surrounding area without a car. Other stations, though, are located in old, walkable rural towns built before the car was dominant, like here in Coatesville. Here, a new high-level platform is under construction, which will serve not only Amtrak, but SEPTA trains extended west from their current terminus of Thorndale. This is good news, as the current Amtrak station is looking tired and shabby. The new Coatesville station gets into another historical theme of the Keystone Corridor, its ongoing revitalization. This followed a period of decline and deterioration on this line, reaching a low point in the 1980s and 1990s. Lack of investment in infrastructure, equipment, and operations saw Amtrak service levels decline and fares skyrocket. Most egregiously, though, electric locomotives were replaced with diesels in 1988, which increased travel times. All of this led to ridership plummeting. Fortunately, Amtrak would not commit the cardinal sin of removing the electrification on this line. In the 2000s, things got back on track, no pun intended. Amtrak partnered with the state of Pennsylvania to refurbish the infrastructure on the line. At the same time, the Metroliner service on the Northeast Corridor was replaced with the Acela Express, freeing up Amtrak electric locomotives. This allowed electric trains to resume service on the Keystone Corridor in 2006, allowing faster acceleration and an end to the time-consuming engine change from electric to diesel in Philadelphia. This coincided with maximum speeds on the line increasing from 90 to 110 miles per hour. In just 4 years, these improvements led ridership to increase by more than 40%. Unfortunately, one thing these improvements did not address becomes apparent as we enter the farms and fields of Lancaster County. See, when the Philadelphia and Columbia Railroad was built, it bypassed a small town called Strasburg, which had previously been a major stop on the Conestoga Wagon Road from Philadelphia to the west. The local businessmen, none too pleased, got the state to give them a charter in 1832 to build their own short-line railroad to connect Strasburg to the main line. Thus was born the Strasburg Railroad, America's oldest continuously operating railroad. And while the railroad continues to haul tourists and freight to this very day, there is no longer a station at Leaman Place, the junction with the Keystone Corridor, to allow passengers to switch from Amtrak to the tourist trains. This is a problem, especially because transit access to Strasburg, PA is non-existent, but that's a future video. If you want to learn more, Classy Whale has made a few videos that I highly recommend. And finally, after one last 110 mile per hour sprint through Pennsylvania Dutch country, we finally arrive at my destination, Lancaster. What a great train ride. And now it was time for the next elevator test of the day, from the platform to the station overbridge. Thank you.
It's a lot. Cool. You want? There was the.
The Lancaster Station building, which by the way I built in Minecraft, is simple but elegant, with beautiful architecture and a coffee shop for waiting passengers. And now to get to ground level, we have our fifth and final elevator test of the day. Ain't bad. Due to track upgrades ongoing on the rest of the line between Lancaster and Harrisburg, passengers continuing beyond Lancaster were told to board 2 rail replacement buses,
one for Harrisburg only, and another for the remaining intermediate stops.
Alright, so I made it to Lancaster. Only maybe 10 minutes late, if that, so pretty good. So now I'm gonna go downtown to the hotel, and there's a bus that's a couple blocks away, and it's apparently going to be there in 12 minutes, and it's going to take 10 to walk there. So I'm going to see if I can get there in time. Okay, so this intersection, how do I get across? I hope I'm gonna have time when I get to the bus stop to figure out how much it costs. Just hope I'll be able to stick some cash in the fare box. Okay, 5 seconds later, here comes another one. Maybe this one? Thank you.
10 minutes later, I had gotten off the bus at Queen Street Station and was walking the last few minutes to Penn Square and my hotel. And now, time for model trains. And yes, my model train survived the trip. So, after 2 days of model trains, plus rail fanning, bus riding, and urbanist exploring for future videos, subscribe for those, it was time to do the entire trip again in reverse. Or so I thought. I got to the station fine, I actually walked this time, the train had been announced, and everyone was on the platform. And then... nothing. No train. Eventually, we would find out that our train hit a truck of some sort just a few miles west of the station, despite the fact that there aren't any public grade crossings on the section of the line anymore. Was this another case of a farm tractor at a private crossing? Who can say? But in any case, I knew I was in for a very long night if I waited for Amtrak to make alternate arrangements. But it was after this day I believe in divine intervention. See, my parents just happened to be driving home from North Carolina, and they just happened to be in Hamburg when all this happened. So bless them, they added a few hours to their already long drive to pick me up at the station and bring me home. So, bit of an anticlimactic ending. Or is it? Hi everyone, this is the J-Bahn here. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. I want to take the time to say thank you for 250 subscribers, plus however many more we have by this video has been uploaded. Considering this channel was still under 150 subscribers at the beginning of May, and only added around 10 subscribers between February and April, this is a seismic jump, and I'm over the moon right now. And it's all down to you guys, so thank you. Be sure to look forward to more content because I have a bunch planned and there's so much more underway. Have a good evening.